Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your ever-loving Shorty, and I like scary things, which is convenient because I'm going to be reviewing Brynmore, and this is clearly a scary comic book. It's by Niles and Damien Worm, and that is clearly meant to be scary. What's odd is not a scary comic book at all, and I still quite liked it. And I need to make sure everyone understands exactly what I'm talking about here, because I've talked about comic books, well, specifically a horror comic book, quite a lot in the past, and how they differ from horror TV shows, horror movies, horror novels, because they do different things, and they can only really be scary in other ways. It's very hard to have a jump scare in a comic book, and I could go on at length of that. I have done in the past. Go watch the Incredible Hulk one I did recently. I talk a bit more about how horror comic books can still be scary. This one, when I say it isn't scary, I'm saying it isn't trying to be scary. It's an issue one, it's doing a lot of other things, and it's leaving you with some interesting little tidbits that could come back later to haunt us. But at no point did I even get a sense that this was trying to be unnerving, unsettling, gruesome, gory, scary, or horrific in any way, shape, or form. It's an issue one, and what it's doing is building up what's going on. It doesn't do it perfectly. Very early on in the comic book, I was a bit like, this is a lot of quite dry information being dropped. We're getting some box out text, some, I'm guessing, third-person narration explaining what's going on, who these people are, what the world is like, where the history of these people intersect, and all that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool, it's nice to get this information, I suppose. You know, if you've got to do it this way, I get that. It's not ideal, but if we need to know this information, and this is how it's using to tell us, then I guess we've got to go along with it. But later in the comic book, they actually do a really good job of just showing this information by the way characters interact with each other, what things are said, and this is used to not only add to the world building, it adds depth to characters and even introduces some new ones and works on their relationships. The writer clearly has an ability to portray this kind of information through narrative storytelling and character interaction rather than box out text. And unfortunately, he chose the box out texting first and then just proved later on they didn't need to do it. And it was mildly frustrating. But didn't bother me too much in the end because, like I say, he did a really good job later on with it. And he actually does a really good job throughout the comic book of making this world interesting. These characters do have backgrounds that are interesting. For instance, I didn't need to be told at the beginning of this comic book that the main character we're dealing with had drug and alcohol issues. It doesn't really come up at all at any point that's really relevant to the story, except maybe it's a bit of a background of why he's there. But again, I didn't need all of that information. What was excellent was later on, you see him pull up his pickup truck after some hard things have happened, involving a strange wife and child doesn't want to speak to him, and park outside a bar and sit there and wait, clearly angry, gets annoyed with himself, goes, no, do not need this, and drives off. And it's like, cool, I didn't need that to be spelled out to me. That's told to me right there. That's really good. Why did you have to add all this stuff at the beginning? There is like a genuine bit at the end where it gets a bit creepy, and that's nice, but it's not done to be like creepy, scary kind of stuff. It's more like, let's build up to something. It is a monthly comic book. It's not got that binge TV kind of thing or movie where it just moves from action to action, scene to scene. They know that they've got to keep us interested and want to come back after a few weeks to pick up issue 2, and they do a good job at that. It is mysterious, not creepy and scary. But the journey to figure it out means going into the basement of a church, and church without any electric lighting, so it's all done by torchlight, in a dark wooden cellar. And I've got to be honest, it was the final kind of like pièce de résistance of wonderful art and wonderful colouring. Damien Worm, I think this guy's name is. Yeah, he's not an artist that I follow that much, but I've seen him do other stuff before, and I've always quite liked it. This is, I think, probably my favourite thing he's done in terms of his art, because very early on, we get this rather immaculate double-page spread of a ferry coming into port in what looks to be a fishing town, which is on an island, and it is brilliant, it's beautiful, it's got depth to it, the colour rolls off the page, there is just enough detail that's intriguing, but not so much as overwhelming. The shadows and light play on it, it's just spectacular. I can almost smell the seaside from this, of somebody who goes to seaside towns every once in a while. And he keeps it up throughout. But the thing that impresses me more, although yes, the line work is fantastic, the detail is superb, it's the colouring he uses. There are times when it is deep and rich, there are times it doesn't need to be. He has a great understanding of how sources of light will create depth to shadows, depending on what surface the light is reflecting on, what surfaces are there that can just absorb the light. And everything about it just feels natural and like you're actually part of that world. The characterization is pretty good visually as well. He's not going for full photorealism, which I quite like, but it's certainly edging way more into realism than caricature or cartoony, and it feels like it's a perfect fit for this horror because it's going to have some supernatural element to it. Again, based on the cover. All these little aspects come together really quite well. I would say, like at the beginning, my criticism, and it's a frustrating kind of thing because it's similar to what I've criticised artists before, it's the kind of putting motion lines in a fight. If you're a good enough artist, you don't need to do that. We know that's what's happening. We can get a sense of movement from your even still artwork. To the right of this too, Steve Niles, you don't need to give us all that information at the front. You did a really good job of spreading that out and making it part of your narrative and part of your characterization and part of your world building. The extra information at the beginning just felt unnecessary and unfortunately a bit clunky to get me into the story. I hope if you do watch this, I don't know if you will. If you do, I hope you take that as like a constructive criticism. I'm not nailing you. This is really good stuff. But that's it for me today. I've gone over by about a minute because I did enjoy talking about this one. And there's probably not many more reviews this week. I'm afraid it's been another quiet one. So if I don't see you before, it'll be next Tuesday for New Comic Book Day. Until then, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.